You done murdered my son, man, for nothing? He need to go to prison, man. He don't need to be laying no mental hospital.
Donald Bard was in court for the trial of Lucas Kendall, the man charged with killing his son, Kijuan Beer. He was convicted of second-degree murder with a firearm and attempted murder. On June 1, 2012, Lucas Kendall, then 26, reported to work at a Miami strip club. For unclear reasons, Kendall opened up and shot two men in the parking lot. Bard, 29, and his best friend, Michael Smothers, who is permanently paralyzed from the waist down. Lucas Kendall pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, which made Donald Bard enraged.
That's why I said he need to go to prison. He don't need to be laying no mental hospital. He need to go to prison, man. Come on, sir. He wanna play crazy. He wasn't crazy when he murdered my son, man. He wasn't crazy then, but he crazy now. All of a sudden he crazy now. You wanna lay in a mental hospital? You done murdered my son, man, for nothing? When he was trying to get away from you.
Donald Bard had to be dragged out of the courtroom.
Man, and you kept shooting him while his back was under the truck. You kept shooting him, man. You kept shooting him. And his back was turned to you, man. He was trying to get away from you. And you murdered him, man, like that. You murdered him, man, like that. Why you doing it like that, man? And you want to play crazy, man. You ain't crazy. You ain't crazy, man.
Kendall was sentenced to a lifetime behind bars. Randall Mangrove had one request for the judge.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon.
But the judge declined his request.
Would you do that?
That is not how
Yes or
our... No, sir, I can't.
Would you give me 1 minute?
So he took matters into his own hands.
You know that I can't do that. That's not how our legal system...
Mangrove was one of the victims' father of Larry Nassar, a former American sports medicine physician who is a convicted sex offender and serial child molester. For 18 years, he was the team doctor of the United States women's national gymnastics team, where he used his position to exploit and sexually assault hundreds of young athletes.
What have you done? I don't know who you are now. Maybe I never knew. Maybe none of us did. But Larry, you did this to yourself, and you did this to us.
And while we all are moving mountains, you, Larry, will have no choice but to sit in prison and wait to die. I will be out in the real world, thriving, empowering, and standing by others, while you rot in a prison cell the rest of your life.
Randall Mangrove received no charges and offered an apology to the court.
To look over at Larry Nassar, shaking his head. That's when I lost control. I'm not advocating that everyone should do that. I feel very remorseful, very apologetic.
However, Larry Nassar was sentenced to 179 years in prison. Van Terry stood up to give his victim's impact statement.
Van Terry? Wow, that's really Terry.
It was during the trial of notorious serial killer and sex offender Michael Madison from East Cleveland, Ohio. He is known to have committed the murders of at least 3 women over a 9-month period. One of them Sherelda Terry Van Terry's daughter. In 2012, Madison began targeting women in the impoverished East Cleveland neighborhood. He would lure them to his apartment, where he would assault and kill them. He then disposed of the bodies in plastic bags around the neighborhood.
There was evidence of decomposition fluid in several parts of the apartment building. There were maggots that were attached to the decomposition fluid. There were some trace decomposition fluid on the walls coming out of the kitchen to the doorway. There were multiple articles of clothing inside the residence, it was somewhat in disarray. So it's hard for me to state whose is whose or whose is what at this point. But I mean, that's something that we're sorting out.
Madison was arrested on July 19, 2013, after police found evidence linking him to the murders. But Van Terry did not make it to the end of his victim impact statement. He looked at Michael Madison only to find him smirking. Terry lunged across the courtroom at the man accused of causing his daughter's death. Michael Madison was sentenced to death, while Van Terry received no charges.
It is the judgment of this court that the aggravated circumstances of course of conduct, felony murder, kidnapping, felony murder, rape, of which the defendant was convicted, outweigh the mitigating factors by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Accordingly, the sentence of death is imposed upon the defendant Michael Madison on counts 1, 4, and 7.
The two accused murderers were barely 10 seconds in the courtroom before Rick Kaufman lunged at them. James Calman and Devontae Hill faced charges of first-degree murder in relation to the death of Kaitlyn Kaufman. The 26-year-old nurse was commuting to work in December 2020 when her car was struck by 6 bullets. Two bailiffs escorted him out of the courtroom, and he remained seated outside for the rest of the hearing. Inside, Diane Kaufman, Kaitlyn's mother, stayed and welled up with tears throughout the trial. James Cowan was acquitted, while Hill, who confessed to pulling the trigger, testified that he wasn't thinking clearly when he fired at Kaufman's car.
See anyone? You just kept shooting. Did you think it was her or did you think it was somebody else?
I wasn't even looking. I just, in the midst of us driving, him driving, and swerve around her, I just grabbed the gun and started shooting. I didn't look at anything. I didn't look at anyone, so I couldn't tell you who I saw or what I saw.
You didn't look at anything or anyone. You didn't look at where you were firing.
No, I just reacted.
And you want this jury to believe that you were able to hit that car 6 times without looking at it.
He faces 15 to 25 years in prison following his conviction. It was a dramatic day in court when 37-year-old Ryan Burge appeared for the first time. Burge was charged with killing 5-year-old Hartley Anderson. According to court records, Burge had been in a relationship with the girl's mother for about 3 months. He had been in charge of watching Hartley while her mother was at work. Police said that evening medics found the girl unconscious and bleeding badly with severe head trauma at her home. Police said they were told the little girl injured herself while having a tantrum. The girl later died at the hospital. A sea of justice for Hartley t-shirts filled the courtroom on that Monday. The hearing quickly escalated when Hartley's father, Peter Anderson, lunged toward the bench in the direction of Bird. He was quickly taken out by deputies, leading him away in handcuffs. Soon after, the hallway began to fill with supporters, family, and friends. Hartley's mother became overcome with emotion and was carried out of the court. Dwayne Smith stood up to make his victim impact statement, but instead lunged at the 2 people accused of killing his daughter. Jasmine Gordon and her boyfriend Clifford Thomas were found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the death of 3-year-old Jamila. Jamila Smith died after her mother rushed her to hospital. Authorities found she had bruises consistent with abuse to her head and chest, and her death was ruled a homicide. Both James and Gordon were sentenced for 15 to 25 years in prison.